Thanks for tuning in to more NASCAR talk on Prime Sports NASCAR with CJ Radoon from rotowire.com. I don't know where to begin, CJ. If this was Sunday, this would have been a completely different show. But we've had about 3 days to chill.
This is true. I was not impressed at all by Sunday or the race. I mean, you pointed out that they can't get the networks right. So they switched off the finish to NBC. So if you were recording
that,
you're screwed. Then on top of that, you had somebody who can't qualify for the playoffs win. And quite honestly, the only reason that person ended up winning was because of NASCAR's prior incompetence in dealing with the race. It was not a good look for NASCAR. I think from a racing standpoint, I think the Indy road course is significantly better than the oval. And I can see going back there again, be a good race. Sure. Oh my gosh. I hope they learn their lessons in terms of when to throw yellow flags, when not to. Ridiculous, just absolute ridiculous. The biggest issue for me was that last green, white, checkered, when I forget who it was, had the issue the first time through. Parts flying everywhere, debris everywhere, no caution. I mean, it looked like a car exploded. No caution whatsoever. And then they let the entire field go through, and then 12 cars crash and go off and are out of the race, and you're stuck with the craziness that we saw in the last lap, or lap and a half as a result of that.
Are you talking about when Byron went over that
Byron
indentation in the and it's funny because once that happened, my first reaction was, boy, when Kyle Larson wants to be a dick, he could be a dick even when he doesn't trying to be a dick. By basically screwing up the course, he basically did something to it, and then Byron's right behind him, and then boom, it's like, wow.
Logano into the barriers, and then everybody else behind them. Matt DiBenedetto's car exploded at that point. Like, I don't understand, given the amount of debris that was all over that track. They've been having problems with that turn all day. Two underpans, radiator pans of cars were completely wedged under that. When you see the shower of debris the lap before that happened, why didn't you just stop it? Because you knew something was going to happen. And sure enough, it did. And it ruined a lot of people's days.
What? I don't even know, what was that even for? Why was it like the way it was? Why wasn't it flat?
I have no idea. And then when they finally decided to rip it off and take it off, then the announcers are saying, well, how are they going to keep the cars on the track? Well, there's another giant curb behind it that's going to keep the cars on the track. Yeah. And by the way, there's also a white line that tells you where the is.
Yeah, so I thought the way the announcers were talking, like they were thinking that maybe they should stop the race or something because it wasn't the track. How could you race on this track any longer? And I was like, if they stopped the race, I mean, I guess that could have been maybe even worse of an outcome that what took place. But wow, I just,
in all honesty, in hindsight, and I hadn't thought about this until just now, but they're lucky that Chase Briscoe ended up dumping Denny Hamlin, because that then allowed them to focus, and everybody else to focus on something else other than the stupidity led up to that.
Yeah.
So they're lucky in that.
Because that was, I mean, and to think about it, that's the big news as far as the two drivers getting into it, because I was expecting to see a fight when I heard or saw the little clip about it. I go, oh, we're going to get a fight. And then I went ahead and put it on. I'm like, what is this?
Nope.
They're just talking. Why is this such a big deal? And everybody made a big deal over it. They were just talking. That's where we've gotten today. That if you have even the slightest, I didn't even think it was a heated conversation.
I don't think it was heated at all. When I saw Denny Hamlin marching down the grid, I was thinking exactly like you. Oh, here it comes. We're going to get it. Finally, what we're looking for. And then when the cameras actually got on them, they're both just standing there talking. And then you see after maybe 15, 20, 30 seconds, Hamlin go, okay. And then starts to take a walk away. Like, that's it.
Yeah. And that's the big story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's not going good, but thank goodness that there's only one more of these road courses this year. I can't take them anymore. It's just, it seems like every time also we go to the road course, something is going on. And it's just, I know it's not the road course's fault because I admit it. I agree. There's no doubt that this is better than what they had at Indianapolis. They should come back to this road course. They just have to fix it. Yes. So I'm all good with that. As we said before, I don't mind the road courses, but spread them out, please. You know, this last couple of months, I'm just road coursed out. I just don't want to see them anymore. So we only have one more, though, right?
That's correct. Charlotte Roval, which is one of the more exciting ones on the infield road courses, though Indy, certainly, I think for the future, I'm going to be looking forward to that one. But I'm not I said it last week, I'm not a huge fan of the infield road courses on the ovals. Charlotte's the next and last one up. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, we've had some interesting finishes there in the past.
Yeah. As far as the standings are concerned, so we have 2 races to go. And we know Denny Hamlin is going to make it. He's one of the drivers without a win. And then you have Reddick and Harvick don't have wins. So let me just pose a hypothetical. If Kevin Harvick were to win, what happens now as far as Tyler Reddick is concerned?
He's just got to continue.
Make sure nobody else wins. That's outside, correct?
Make sure nobody else wins, and he's got to keep outpointing Austin Dillon for another race after that.
Because Harvick is going to get in.
It looks that way, unless we have 2 winners below him in the standings
True.
win these last 2 races, which is pretty unlikely.
And that's the only other thing is if a Reddick, De Benedetto, a Buescher, one of those drivers were to win on Sunday, then Kevin Harvick has to sweat it out.
He would have to sweat it out because you have the roll of the dice as to who ends up winning in Daytona. We already saw Michael McDowell win the Daytona 500, so no reason Daniel Suarez, right. Bubba Wallace, Eric Jones, Ryan Newman, any of those guys could easily win the Daytona race, and then Harvick's on the outside looking in.
And there's nothing else that we need to worry ourselves about as far as points.
Nope, 14 are already locked in. You've got the last 2. Kevin Harvick looks safe unless we have some off-chance winners. If he makes it through this week with nobody below him in the standings winning, he's going to be looking pretty good going into Daytona. He's going to actually be locked in if that happens.
Okay, and it was interesting that they'll have some data to go back on next year at this Indianapolis road course, but it seemed like everybody's strategy was to pit before the stage. And I guess was it only Denny Hamlin and I don't know, maybe another driver or 2 that had a different strategy? Is that the reason why Denny Hamlin was there in that position? I really kind of lost, but most of the strategy was to pit just before the stage, and drivers were gobbling up stage points that didn't need them.
Yep, it's a track position race. So in order to put yourself in the best position possible to win, you would pit before the pits close prior to each stage break. That puts you at the front of the field for the restart. Behind those folks that would cycle back if they stayed out. The only cars that really stayed out and fought for stage points were Tyler Reddick, Austin Dillon. Those guys needed to gather as much points as they could in the battle with each other for getting that.
Those are the only
playoff.
2 that really did need to. Okay, and they both did the same thing.
Exactly right. They shadowed each other pretty much all day. And quite honestly, I would say that Denny Hamlin was there in that position because he avoided all the trauma that happened to everybody else ahead of him up until that point. I think there were so many issues with the cautions, with damage, people getting run off the track, that he just kind of cycled his way through by keeping his nose clean.
And what was the deal with Briscoe? Why was he getting a penalty?
Briscoe got a penalty, and Jeff Gordon said it on, excuse me, he said it on the show on Monday, questioned why he was getting a penalty. And quite honestly, I agree with Jeff Gordon. I don't necessarily feel that he should have gotten a penalty. NASCAR said that he went off the track and didn't re-enter at the place that he was supposed to. However, where he got pushed off the track, number one, it wasn't his fault. Denny Hamlin left him zero room and put him in the grass. Number two, the spot in which he ended up hitting the grass, I don't know where he was supposed to then go, because he was already well past the apex, well into the turn. So what do you do? Turn around and go backward on the track and get that little escape road? So I agree with Jeff Gordon. I'm confused as to necessarily why he got the penalty to begin with, but ultimately it was because he re-entered the track at the spot where he wasn't supposed to.
And we got ourselves another winning driver who cannot qualify for the playoffs.
We did. AJ Allmendinger. Yeah, it's a good sign for colleague racing stepping up to the Cup full.
Sure. And look, things had to happen. That's how you win these races. I mean, everything had to kind of fall into place, but they put themselves in position and led 2 laps for the win, stole the race and stole a spot. Even though if it would have been Blaney, that wouldn't have mattered anyway. I think it would have been an interesting finish because Larson, if AJ wasn't there, Kyle Larson was going to wreck Ryan Blaney for a win again.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So, and that would have been cool to see actually, because then he could have been the new Kyle Busch maybe, but that just never materialized, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Hadn't thought of that, but you're exactly right. He would have.
All right, let's get into the race this week. Michigan, the first and only race of the season for Michigan. Taking a look at Eric's notes regarding the Speedway from racereviewonline.net. Again, it's a 2-mile and no other 2-mile tracks this season, correct? Because of Fontana being down, right?
Correct. This and one trip to Michigan traded for a road course race. So, which is unfortunate. I really enjoy the racing at Michigan. It's a big, wide track. You can move all over the place. I think we generally
take away the good track. Take away the good races.
Yep.
Yeah. Bristol,
right.
Michigan. Yeah, that's it. And then keep the boring races. Here's some interesting notes. Since the stage era began in 2017, all 8 winners at Michigan collected stage points in the first stage. On top of that, if you take a look at the pole positioning to win, 4 of the last 5 winners came from the top 3, and 10 of the last 11 came from the top 12. Interestingly, the only one being Kevin Harvick in that 12, which happened to be the very last race at Michigan. So there is that. He started 20th last year. But what that's telling me is positioning at Michigan is very important.
It is definitely a track position track, despite the fact that the turns are wide. You can move up and down the track to pass people. You have plenty of room to go wherever you need to based on how your car is handling. Track position and restarts are the key to getting a victory at this track. And looking at the way that the qualifying shapes up, since we know in advance again this week, you've got all of the favorites starting inside the top 10. I can almost guarantee you that the winner, barring maybe 1 or 2, I can almost guarantee you the winner is going to come out of the first 5 rows.
All right. Also, Hendrick has not won, or Hendrick driver has not won since 2014.
That is interesting. The past wins have all been Fords too. A lot of them.
6 straight.
Harvick, 3 in a row. Yeah.
Harvick having 4 of those though.
True.
Toyota has no wins since 2015, and I believe just 1 win in the last 18. That's pretty bad.
It is a hometown track for Ford and GM. So you're in Michigan and Detroit, so you want to definitely beat Toyota. I know they've got a chip on their shoulder. They want to go into the backyard and take it home. but they've been unable to. Ford's been the dominant player there.
All right. Now, as far as our picks, because I just sent my picks off to you guys just before the show. So just to go over here to see how it matches up, none of us have the same driver. So we have not all agreed on one driver. And we do have some long shots we'll talk about here a little bit later. But both of you guys decided to put almost half of your money this week on Kyle Larson. Now, Larson is a heavy favorite at 3-1. All right, we kind of get that, the way he's driving and all that. And he had that 3-race win streak here from 2016 through 2017. But his average finish since then is 15.5 over his last 4 races, and he's only led 3 laps in his last 6. But he hasn't raced there since 2019. He hasn't raced there now that he's a Hendrick driver. And we know how much that has changed Kyle Larson. So I think what it should tell you is he's had a lot of success at this track. He knows how to win at this track. So don't even worry about the fact that he hasn't led laps at this track lately. I don't think that matters at all. The only difference, the big deal for me, is the 3-1. And now that we're over this road course stuff, and I know we've had a few other tracks sprinkled in, Pocono and a few other tracks, New Hampshire. Larson has been a lot better though, and even though he didn't win this race, I'll throw this in there. We talked about it last week. I think now it's Kyle Larson, 1A, and Chase Elliott 1A on road courses. I think Kyle Larson's caught up.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you one bit. After last week's performance, led 28 laps. He led 27 at Watkins Glen and won it. He won on at Sonoma earlier this year, so he is without a doubt the guy to beat at road courses now. So yeah, you've got 1A, 1B there, and then you've got still waiting to see Truex. I don't know if it's an equipment thing or if they're making slight mistakes. They're just a little bit off, about a half step off on the road courses. But if he can get his game going, then you're going to have 3 favorites every single time. But certainly until he does that, it's an Elliott and Larson kind of game.
But I just felt that at this week, it's not a road course. He's 3-1. Now I think it's one of those deals where I think the odds are just a little too low for me, because I think now we're getting the rest of the field catching up. It's not just a 2 or 4 driver kind of race. Now we're back to this being like a 12 to 14 driver kind of race. And I think because of that, I'm going to stay away from those low odds. But both you guys went ahead and put right around the same amount, 38 and 40 on Kyle Larson this week.
Yep, and I totally agree with you. I think this week's going to be much more difficult for him, much less straightforward than had it been on a road course. I remember a couple of weeks ago when we went into Atlanta, you weren't choosing him then because you felt that he was off. He'd had a 16th place finish. His run of first and second place finishes was over. He backed that up with an 18th, so you were right there. But then he started to get it back at New Hampshire. So 7th at New Hampshire, which would have been our last oval. He's had success at this track. He's coming off a lot of momentum at Watkins Glen, and he had a really good outing at Indy, starting on the pole. So it's going to be interesting to see what he's able to do this week back on an oval at Michigan.
Yeah, and that's the thing, though, is that the win in the third came back on the road course.
Exactly right.
So since that first winning the All-Star race deal, which was all on a mixture of tracks, here recently it's 9th, 2nd, 18th, and 7th on non-road course tracks. So we'll see. We'll see if he's back to being hot, or that was more of a road course hot deal. And now he's kind of cooled back off. So that's why I'm willing to take this chance of ignoring him this week at 3-1. Now, you guys decided to go right back to the next. Actually, out of the 3 drivers that are 7-1, we all have one of those drivers at least. It's interesting. You and Eric both went with Kyle Busch and Elliott at 7-1, and I'm the only one to go with Harvick at 7-1. So we kind of split it up there. Kyle and really Kyle Busch, Elliott, and Harvick are all excellent fantasy drivers this week. You got to look at them, no doubt. Kyle has 8 straight top 10s with 5 top 5s at the track. Elliott has 9 top 10s and 10 over his career. Harvick has 15 top 5s and 5 wins, plus 12 top 5s in his last 16, including 6 runner-ups and 4 wins. And he's won 3 straight and 4 or 5. So those are some pretty good fantasy drivers. Why did you decide to go with Kyle and Elliott and not Harvick?
Winning. Harvick hasn't won. I just feel if you look at Harvick's recent statistics, and granted, you got a number of road courses in there, 27th, 11th, 6th, 8th, 14th, not even
absolutely
5. So I'm a little bit concerned, like Truex, and maybe Harvick's probably 3/4 to a full step behind. I think the Elliott's and the Kyle Busches. I just don't think that he's had it. I mean, his teammate lucked into a win, Almirola. He's struggled. He's not been out leading laps. The last time he really led laps was at New Hampshire. He was only able to finish that race 6th. Yeah, he's got a ton of success here and recent success, but this year it's just a different Kevin Harvick to me than last year.
Okay, maybe what I should have said then, well, I didn't know what you were going to say, is why then did you choose Denny Hamlin over Kevin Harvick?
Denny Hamlin, again, I think I said before, if we go back to when we go back to the ovals, that I'm going to keep on him until he wins. So I'm continuing on that strategy.
You're a man of your word.
I'm a little bit more encouraged this week, though, because he was, again, I mean, he was within a lap and a quarter of winning a race.
That's true.
Last week.
Yeah.
He's been so close so many times this year. If you look at the top 10s and the top 5s this season, he's got 16 top 10s, 12 top 5s. The only person more than that right now is Kyle Larson. He's second in the points to Kyle Larson. He just doesn't have the wins. I think he's going to get his breakthrough. I think it's going to come on an oval. Might as well be this week.
Yeah, Hamlin has 9 top 5s, 2 wins, but he's only led 66 laps combined over his last 19 at Michigan. Does have runner-ups in 2 of his last 3 at 9-1. See, with me, with Harvick is that, and I don't even remember the last time I took Kevin Harvick. You know, I don't even know. I might have taken him once or twice in the entire year. But I just figured if I don't take Kevin Harvick this week at this track, the way he has been dominating, then I was never going to take him until he won a race or started to, lead laps and all that. So I just figured, let me put it in there, and at least we'll have him covered. Now, Elliott, the only thing I'm also concerned with Elliott, even though he has 9 top 10s and 10 at the track, he has led just 10 laps in his last 8 after runner-ups in 3 straight races at Michigan, which is very hard to do. He was also runner-up in 1 of 2 races in the Xfinity Series, so he was like on this runner-up tear when he first came to Michigan, but not lately with the laps situation. And the same thing with Kyle. He's only led 11 laps in his last 4 races at Michigan, and he's only won once. So Kyle and Elliott combined have only won once out of 42 races.
Yep, Elliott, all of his, 66 of his 76 laps led at Michigan came in the first 2 races that he had there. He's really only got 1 blemish on his resume at this track, though, in the Cup Series. 10 total starts. Only 1 of them was worse than 9th, and that was 2019 when he finished 20th. So I think he and the Hendrick guys are just looking extremely good right now, starting on the front row. I think it's coming down at this point, unless Hamlin can start winning. I think it's coming down at this point that the 2 best guys out there pretty much every week are going to be Elliott and Larson. And Kyle Busch consistently has been knocking on the door, though. So again, I don't think that he's up there with the Hendrick guys. I don't think Joe Gibbs is there yet. But of the Joe Gibbs guys, he probably stands the best chance at winning. Hamlin is snake bitten for whatever reason. If he gets that breakthrough, he's able to break the seal. I think the wins will come, and maybe he'll be up there with Busch. But I think Busch just has a tendency to find a way to win, whether he's that half step behind or not.
Well, I mean, this is actually why I want to see how things go now over the next 4 or 5 races, because I'm intrigued by because it's just so hard over the last couple of months to kind of figure out where every driver really is because of the road, too many road courses, and it's just it doesn't
Mhm.
fit everybody. And you're so as soon as we get off the road courses and we start getting a little bit more, all right, here are some more normal racetracks. I think then I think we start to really figure out, okay, because I still think it's possible for a lot of these drivers to kind of get on a run.
Agreed.
Many of these drivers that haven't been on a run before, including, even though Hamlin hasn't had it since the beginning of the year, he could get on a run again. Harvick could get on a run, period.
Perfect. Yep.
So, Truex, he's 8-1. Eric was the only one to put a little money on him. Maybe he's due for a run. We've talked about how strong he could be over, if he's there at the end of the playoffs with the tracks that he is dominant at. He'll start fifth. He has 10 top fives in 30 races at Michigan, including 4 straight, but he's never won there.
Extremely good at this track, and I had him in my list and couldn't figure out how to make it work since I had both Elliott and Larson in there. But yeah, Truex is definitely one to consider this week. Third, fourth, third, and third in the last 4 races here, and he led 43 laps in the second race in 2019, which was the last one, or last year, I should say, that Kyle Larson raced there as well. So Truex is definitely one that's on my radar. Just couldn't figure out how to make it work this week.
It's interesting. Martin Truex has 1 top 5 on courses not named road courses since his win at Darlington.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So that's why it's so hard to figure these drivers out with all those road courses. All right, but we'll see. Like I said, we know Truex has it in him to get hot. Now Logano will be 9-1, Keselowski 12-1, and Blaney 14-1. Those top Penske drivers. A big difference is Blaney will start third, whereas Logano 19th and Keselowski at 20th. You did put money. You're the only one to put money on Keselowski. None of us put money on Logano, and Eric and I put money on Blaney. Blaney's the one that will be my biggest payout of the top 2 that I have, Harvick and Blaney. And I just figured that Blaney, because he's on a nice little run here, what does he have, like 3 top 5s in his last 4 overall? He has 4 top 10s in his last 6 at Michigan. And again, the good starting position, the forward and all that. Keselowski has never won at Michigan. Logano has 3 wins at Michigan, and he's dominated in 2 races, 2 of those wins in 19 and 16. I would definitely favor Logano over Keselowski, but you like Keselowski over the other 2. Why is that?
I went incomplete inversion. So yes, I agree. Of the 3 Penske guys, Logano is the one that if you're going with your brain, he's the fastest at this track. He's going to be excellent, and he's going to be one to watch to win. For sure, he's got the experience, the 3 victories, got 5 poles, I think, something like that. Really good at this track, and he's dominated. Blaney on a very good run right now, coming back to ovals where we know he's at his best. He's got a prime starting position. So if you're looking for somebody with that spark, Blaney would be your second choice. The reason I went with Keselowski is because this might be his last chance to get a victory at his home track. He's with Penske. He's going to be going to Roush Fenway next year as a part owner and driver. This might be the best chance that he has left of getting it done. He's never won at his home track. He's spoken many, many, many times about how badly he wants it. I think he's going to try to figure out a way to get it done, despite the fact that he's starting way back in the field.
All right, some other interesting notes. Logano has just 1 top 5 since his 4th place finish at Sonoma.
That's hard to believe.
Keselowski, he's coming off, a really bad couple of weeks, but those are road courses. Blaney, if you look at Blaney, his last 4 non-road course racetracks, he's finished 5th, and 6th. All right, now let's go with Byron at 12-1. Unfortunately, he starts 18th. None of us went with William Byron. He hasn't shown much at this track, just 1 top 10 out of 6. He did finish second in his one Xfinity Series race. Byron, at least it's good news for William Byron fans that the last couple of road course races he has picked up the pace after a dismal start to the road course season. Right now, even though that's the case, he still, of course, was the beneficiary of that crazy nonsense we talked about in the beginning, which is why he finished 33rd. But overall, we'll find out if his last couple of weeks will be a springboard to him getting hot again, because he did kind of cool off even before this little recent road course, these recent road course races.
Yeah, I was impressed at how he's performed over the past couple of weeks because, like you said, he was not good on the road courses at all. So he was definitely one that you could just skip right over, but didn't seem to be that way over the past couple of weeks. Certainly not last week until the trouble hit. Regardless of the fact that he's only got one top 10 here at Michigan, I think both he and his teammate Alex Bowman are two guys you've got to look out for pretty much every single week, especially on ovals, and especially on ovals like Michigan. This is a horsepower track. Yeah, it's track position, but this is a fast, wide open track, and you've got to have horsepower, and we know that Hendrick does. So I think that Byron and Bowman have a chance to outperform their usual expectations this week very easily. Like, I would not be surprised if either one of them pulled in the victory lane, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I actually, I did put 10 of my 100 on Bowman. Kind of like you with Hamlin, as I've said. I'm going to keep putting money on Bowman if he keeps getting disrespected with odds. And I get it. He's only had 2 top 10s in 11 races, never led a lap, doesn't even have a good resume in the Xfinity Series, but he starts 10th, so he's in a better position than Byron. And I'm getting 20 to 1, which is, the odds compared to his teammates are that much better. So I figured, well, why not take a chance with Bowman again with again 20 to 1. I'm surprised, and I don't care as much about Byron and Bowman's recent history at this track because they're just different drivers this year. But I chose Bowman over Byron because I'm starting 10th instead of 18th, and I'm getting 20 to 1 instead of 12 to 1.
Completely agree with everything you said. Of the two, definitely I would go with Bowman, but both, neither one would be a shock if they won on Sunday, to me, without a doubt.
A couple of 25 to 1 drivers, Bell and Kurt Busch. And let's see, Eric put a few bucks on Bell at 25 to 1. He'll be starting 28th. I'm not sure why. I'd have to ask Eric, but these are usually those picks that he makes that you don't understand why, and then he win.
Yep.
I've got Kurt Busch at 25 to 1, and I also think he's a very good fantasy driver this week. He's been 12th or better in 10 of his last 12 at Michigan, including a win and a runner-up. He's got 3 wins on his career here. He has only led 51 laps in his last 11 and 5 in his last 5, but again, he likes the track, and most importantly, not only does he have a win, but he'll start 6th.
Yeah, I think Kurt Busch is a great fantasy play. Nice and safe, very consistent. He's got the pace to be able to hang in the top 10. He's going to be able to do that, assuming he makes no mistakes, being able to start 6th. On Sunday. For him to win, I think it's going to take a little bit of unique circumstances, certainly just because he doesn't have the pace as the other guys that we've been talking about. I do see on Christopher Bell why Eric chose him. He was on my mind, but then when I saw where he was starting, I
28th. I mean,
yeah, if he were starting further up, he would be a guaranteed play for me on the betting side. But with his starting position so far back, I think he's going to move forward, but it's going to take him a long time to be able to do that. And I'm not sure how that's going to shake out over the course of the race.
And that could make him a really good fantasy play.
Absolutely. I think he's definitely got to be in your fantasy rosters if you get the points for finish differential this week, because I don't think there's any way he's staying that far back in the field for very long.
And Tyler,
I just don't win.
What was that?
I just don't think he's going to win.
Okay.
From that far.
At 40 to 1 is Tyler Reddick, who has like 12 top 10s this year or something like that. So he's been a top 10 machine, and actually he's sort of been like a top 12, 13 machine too. But that's the reason why he has a chance to make the playoffs. He would deserve it The only thing is he hasn't really done anything past that. Like, we don't see a lot of top fives. What does he have? What does he have? One
One
top
top
five.
five.
Yeah. And that was at Homestead to start the season, pretty much. He'll start 14th. He does have a win in the Xfinity Series at this track. And Eric decided to put a couple of bucks on Reddick at 40-1.
Yeah, he's another one that's going to do everything that he needs to do to get maximum points. So he's not going to be one that's going to be sacrificing a stage to be able to set himself up for the win. He's going to be, if Dylan gets ahead, he's going to be shadowing Dylan all day, trying to keep pace with him. If he's ahead of Dylan, he's going to be in the better spot based on the day, and he's going to be ahead of Dylan, certainly just based on starting position. He's just going to be focusing on getting as many stage points as he can and then finishing up on the order. That doesn't necessarily always translate to a winning day. So I think that you're looking more for another top 10 machine kind of day out of Reddick and extend his point gap to Dylan just a little bit further.
And Dylan, these are a couple of decent tracks for him to get a chance to get in, because he has 5 career top 10s at Michigan, which for Dylan is pretty good. And then he gets to go to Daytona, which he's pretty good at those types of tracks. So he has a legitimate chance in these next 2 races to steal a win. Compared to other tracks that he would really have no chance at. So he's 50-1, but he'll start 26th in this race, which is not good at all. At 66-1, you have Almirola and Chastain. At 80-1 is Di Benedetto. And both Eric and I put a few bucks on Di Benedetto. His best result was his last race at Michigan. That's when he finished 7th. But I like the fact not only is he 80-1, but he drives a Ford, and he gets to start 4th.
Starting on the outside of the second row, yeah, Di Benedetto was another one with Truex that I had in my list that had I not gone for Keselowski, it would have been Di Benedetto. Is kind of a toss-up between the two. I like the way that Di Benedetto's been going. He's got a great result here. In the second race last year, started 6th and finished 7th. That was the highest he's ever started at this track, and that translated to his highest finish by far ever at this track. So I think 4th is going to give him the opportunity to do another career best. And he's a guy, he has to go for wins. So he's got to go for wins, not just for playoff hopes, but he's got to go for wins just to make sure that he's got a job next year. So it wouldn't be surprising to see him within spitting distance of the lead pretty much the entire afternoon. I think, like you said, with the Penske connection and the Ford, he's going to be fast starting up front. I expect good things from Di Benedetto on Sunday.
Buescher at 125-1. Both Eric and I put a few bucks on Buescher. He starts 11th, driving a Ford. And if you look at it, he was on the pole last year. I don't know why. Do you know why he would have been on the pole last year?
They weren't doing metrics, were they? They were doing a random draw depending upon where
at that time. Okay, maybe then.
If I remember.
Okay. Anyway, but his Xfinity Series history also, he's got 3 top 10s and 1 top 5 in 3 Xfinity Series races. So he likes the track, and he has a pretty good starting position. Plus, he's a Ford at 125-1.
Yeah, to me, this is a place for Buescher, like where he won at Pocono. If he's going to be able to get up there into the top 12, top 10 kind of range, and if the chips fall his direction, he gets a lot of luck. He could be in contention to win. Hasn't had a top 10 since Charlotte, going all the way back to May. He finished 12th though on the road course, which was pretty good for him last week. So definitely, I think I would choose him more from a fantasy perspective, just because the likelihood of him actually going out and winning, sure. I'd rather put money on somebody like a Matt Benedetto.
And Suarez, I think, was interesting until you notice that he has to start 30th, because he has 2 top 5s in his last 4 at this track, and he won one of 2 Xfinity Series races at Michigan in 2016. But not when he's starting 30th. All right. So again, as far as the picks are concerned, your top payout would be Keselowski, and your biggest investment is Larson. Eric's biggest investment is Larson. His top payout would be Di Benedetto. And then my biggest investment is Harvick. My top payout is actually Buescher. but that's because I threw a few extra bucks on DiBenedetto and Buescher with Ryan Blaney as my top payout for the real contenders. What are you going to be working on as we get ready to gear up for the postseason here real soon? And that means we'll probably be talking to Eric because the IndyCar series has a race this week, but no race, I believe, next week. So we'll probably talk to Eric next week leading into Daytona, and then definitely have him on to preview the playoffs for sure. And also want to congratulate him for being a father again.
Yeah, exactly right. Interesting timing over the race weekend last week.
Sacrifices. He's already sacrificing. He's going to have a story to tell this kid. Yes. I've sacrificed for you even when you weren't born.
Yes. Yes, that was interesting. So yeah, congratulations to you, Eric. Can't wait to talk to you in person. This week IndyCar and Trucks are at Gateway. Trucks kick off their postseason now. Their playoff season this week. So we'll have a fantasy preview up for them, fantasy preview for Xfinity at Michigan, fantasy preview for Cup at Michigan, and then we'll have a Cup recap up on rotowire.com sometime on Monday.
Who's like the general favorite now in the Xfinity series? Is it Cindric?
Cindric is leading the series. He's got 5 wins, though I would say the only reason he's the favorite right now is because Ty Gibbs, who is not full-time. Ty Gibbs has come in and just smashed everything. He's only doing a part-time schedule. I think he's already won like 4 races.
Wow.
Something ridiculous.
Is he a truck driver?
No, he just coming up. Well, he did trucks, but just coming up into Xfinity, trying to get the taste of it. Not doing trucks full time either.
He's got a nice taste.
He does, yeah. So I think I know he's one to watch for the future. If he were in it full time, he would be the favorite. Given that he's not doing it full time, Cindric is the one. He's got 5 wins right now. Allmendinger and Allgaier are behind him with 2 each.
Okay, and still waiting for Gragson to pick up a win.
Still waiting for Gragson. Yeah, he started off the season really strong. He's been in a slump for most of the year since then, but he's still been like lurking in the top 10.
Yeah.
He hangs around, and that's what it takes to win. He's just got to find the right breaks. And I think once he does, he's going to be up there and competitive pretty much every week.
What team does Gibbs drive for?
Gibbs.
Oh. Why, is he related?
Grandson. Yeah, grandson of...
Okay, I did not know that. All right. Wow. Okay.
Yep.
So how many years before he's driving for his uncle?
2.
2 years.
I would say, yeah.
So next year, full-time Xfinity, then 2023 full-time Cup.
If he's able to replicate the success next year on a full-time schedule with what he's done already this year, there is no reason you would hold him back from Cup as soon as he can get in.
And then that means that, maybe that's the time that Denny Hamlin leaves.
Very well could be.
And goes and gets his, becomes, not only an owner, but an owner and a driver for his own team.
Could be. Yeah. And I don't think you're holding back Ty Gibbs very long at the rate.
And by the way, they're all getting older. Truex, Kyle Busch, and Denny Hamlin.
True
so
enough.
In a couple of years, it wouldn't be surprising if one of those drivers just decided, that's it. I'm okay. I can move on.
Yep. I could see that.
What would be a really good broadcast team of drivers that you'd want to really... I mean, do you think Kyle and Kurt Busch? You think that they would be okay in the booth together, or who would you want to see in the booth? I don't want to see Logano and Keselowski. So I could already tell that they're going in that direction, but they're young enough that we don't have to think about that for a while. But as far as the older drivers, who do you think would make a really good, okay, you know what? Now that you're retired, please tell me you'll go up into the broadcast booth.
I had it right on the top of my tongue. It wasn't Logano, not Keselowski. Kurt. I think Kurt makes a really good announcer. I don't know how Kyle would do. Kyle's a little bit more closed off. Kurt's willing to talk, and he can get some eloquence going, and he can go off on tangents. I haven't really seen Kyle Busch do that. So I would love to see Kurt Busch move into broadcasting. I think he's got great insight, and he's got great perspective, and I think he's a little bit more even-handed, not as willing to toe the party line as we've seen a lot of the other guys throughout. So of the bunch, I would love to see Kurt Busch. The rest of them, I think I need to see a little bit more. But you're right, Keselowski Harvick to an extent.
Harvick, maybe.
I like Harvick on I would put him higher
Then
on the list
Keselowski and
than
Logano, yes.
yeah, they those guys just are a little bit too vanilla. If you want somebody that's going to toe the party line and be the NASCAR cheerleader, those are the guys you go for. If you want a little bit of edginess, more entertainment, you go on the Kurt Busch, Kevin Harvick kind of scale. Harvick said a couple of things as he's been in the booth a few times that haven't been exactly politically correct from a NASCAR point of view as well. So that's a good thing for the future. Hopefully they take him and Kurt.
And look, you have to be likable, and that's one of the things that unfortunately some of these networks just don't get. Oh, they're a former, this is their profession. Yeah, but come on, it's like when they give jobs to Keyshawn Johnson or I don't know, Michael Irvin, and guys that are they have this personality. Yeah, but 80% of the fan base just don't like them. So why would they want to? And if they don't really even respect what they're saying, because most of these professional athletes aren't very good on the air to begin with, throw in the personalities that you just and that's the deal with Logano and Keselowski. They're just not. It's not that they're bad people. It's just that their personalities are just not very good. It's just they're not likable.
They're very vanilla. Yeah. And it actually reminded me, as I was looking at the Xfinity standings, another person that I find great whenever he's in the booth, and he does it for all of the different series, not just NASCAR, is AJ Allmendinger. I could see him having a full-time job in TV after he's done driving as well.
Okay, keep that in mind. Excellent job as always, CJ. We have one more race to go. And thank goodness it's Daytona after these road courses.
Looking forward to it. It's about time.
Yes, and then we'll preview the playoffs in a couple of weeks as well. We'll get Eric's butt here on the program too. So, CJ, appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.